June 21st, 1970, Mexico City, the most beautiful football the world has ever seen. Brazil, 4 goals, Italy 1. Pelé, the greatest player alive, lifted the World Cup in front of the entire world. Back home, millions of Brazilians poured into the streets for celebration, but there was one man watching that celebration who was more relieved than anyone, and he wasn't a football fan. This is the story nobody tells about the 1970 World Cup, and once you know this, you will never watch football the same way again. By 1970, Pelé had already won 2 World Cups. He was 29 years old, the most famous human being on the planet. Some called him the greatest who ever lived. The 1970 Brazil squad is still considered the greatest national team ever assembled. Do you agree to this? Pure football. But here's what the celebrations did. 6 years before that World Cup, the Brazil military had seized power. By 1968, they had imposed their most brutal laws, yet Congress shut down. Thousands arrested and hundreds tortured. The man running Brazil was General Emilio Medici, a football fanatic and a reckless director, and he had a plan. Win the 1970 World Cup, use the celebration to cover the chaos, and this was his plan. General summoned Pelé to his office, made his plan known to him. Director photographed next to the most loved man in Brazil. The regime pressured Pelé to play in the tournament. He had considered retiring from international football. They couldn't let that happen. The original coach then, Charles Adaha, declared his support for the communist politics. Therefore, the general fired him immediately. Brazil won. The street erupted, and the general moved faster. Every player received medal, car, cash, and company shares. The World Cup song became the regime official anthem. Pelé's face was on government propaganda posters. Years later, Pelé himself broke his silence. He said the military government, and these are his exact words, thanklessly used our victory as a propaganda tool to discard his excuse. And then he said something even more powerful. I regret that I didn't speak up sooner. Sounds familiar, right? Qatar 2022. The World Cup held in the country abuse of human rights abuse, record dice, immigrant exploitation, and the football. Sports have always been peaceful, not just by Brazil, not just in 1970. It is happening right now. And the question Pelé never asked loud enough is the question we all face as fans. When we are watching a beautiful game, what are we choosing not to see? Pelé died in December 2022. He was 82 years old, the greatest footballer who ever lived. The 1970 World Cup will always be the most beautiful football ever played. That is real, that is true. Nobody can take that away. But behind every beautiful moment in sports, there is a story, a real story, with real people, and the real consequences, and those stories deserve to be told. That's why we are here. Drop a comment. Did you know any of this before today? And if this story hits you, share it, because Pelé deserves to be remembered for everything, not just goals. If you want more stories like this every week, subscribe. Next week we got even deeper carving.